Available now on Blu-ray from Arrow Video is the 1975 dark underbelly of Hollywood film Day of the Locust, based on the book by Nathaniel West and directed by John Schlesinger, who gave us Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man. This is a film I'd long heard about, and I even had found a used VHS tape that I picked up somewhere that I threw on the pile because I'm like, I've heard about this movie, I want to see it. But it was a movie that I had heard about but never really gets talked about, never really got shown that often on TV, or doesn't get really shown in revival houses, and I think I know why. Let's talk about what this disc is, okay? This is the story of a young guy. The initial character we follow is portrayed by William Atherton, as most people now would know as Mr. Peck from Ghostbusters, and he's a young, aspiring Hollywood production designer, I guess you would say. He's an artist that gets a job at a studio hoping to do sketches for productions to sort of visualize what scenes and sets and things might look like. And this is set in the 20s, 30s, I think, era of Hollywood, the studio system, the Art Deco, the grand cars and grand studios and grand sets and all that stuff. And he moves into this apartment building, one of those little U-shaped courtyard apartment buildings that's filled with characters. There's a young Jackie Earle Haley, a couple of years before Bad News Bears, and many years before that terrible Nightmare on Elm Street remake, plays this little blonde, curly-haired kid his stage mother is always telling him to practice his this and practice his that and taking him to auditions, and he's tap dancing. He's really, really kind of a terrible child otherwise. And Billy Barty plays this. If you ever wanted to see, no matter what else I say, if you ever wanted to see a foul-mouthed Billy Barty uttering the N-word and engaging in a cockfight, we're talking about chickens, this is the film to see. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that is just like, if you wanted to see swearing Billy Barty, cockfights, Donald Sutherland playing a character named Homer Simpson, Day of the Locust is the film for you. So Atherton moves into this place with all these people, and across the way from him is this young, blonde, aspiring, kind of flighty, aspiring actress played by Karen Black. Her father is played by Burgess Meredith. Her father is a former vaudeville clown who misses the spotlight. He's sort of like has-been is always a rude word, but I guess in this context of this movie, he's like a has-been vaudeville clown, and he goes door to door using his old vaudeville, razzle-dazzle to try to sell bottles of a miracle solvent. And Karen Black is this young aspiring actress who's occasionally gets a bit part, and she's calling Central Casting every day to see if there are any parts for her. And it's just all these sort of desperate people desperately trying to catch a little bit of that shine of Hollywood, a little bit of that shine from showbiz. The book apparently was very notorious for being a condemnation of Hollywood and very anti-Hollywood. And the movie itself was, when it came out, 40 years after the original book, was sort of lambasted and criticized as being, Hollywood self-loathing and all of that, because it really is pretty grim for the most part. There's no real likable people in this movie as far as I was concerned. A lot of the characters are really weird or annoying or sleazy. There's always this undercurrent to me of watching the entire thing. Something really bad is going to happen. This is going to take a dark turn multiple times. I'm saying, I don't say anything out loud when I watch a movie with anybody, but I'm thinking in my head, oh boy, now this is going to happen. And for the most part, it didn't. And what does happen at the end, it ends with this. I'm not going to give it away. It ends with this moment of apocalypse, more or less, at a Hollywood premiere. Probably said too much. That I never saw coming, and gets really disturbing. Like, this whole movie is kind of slow and kind of meandering, and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, what is happening? What is this? Like, you get all these little vignettes, and the Karen Black character is very ditzy and weird, and is basically using all the men around her, flirting with all the men around her to try to see whatever she can do to get where she wants to get in her career. And I'm like, oh boy, this isn't going to work out. This is going to work out very poorly for somebody here. So the storyline is kind of meandering and kind of weird, and some of the characters just perform weirdly. Like I said, Donald Sutherland is in this, and he plays this very simple-minded religious guy that Karen Black winds up living with for a financial arrangement. She's there to be there with him, and he'll pay for her to be a star or something like that. Burgess Meredith acts really strangely as this really alcoholic former vaudevillian, and it's a lot of, I don't know, it really rubbed me the wrong way. I really did not enjoy this for the most part while I was watching it. Really well made, from all the extras that are on here, which are fascinating. Very expensive movie, top level talent across the board. But ultimately, it's a really dreary story that takes a long time to get there. And while I'm watching it, I'm thinking, You know, it's not always important to be faithful to the novel. That's sacrilege, but what you're making here is a movie. Now, you can either be completely true to the novel, in which case you're making something far longer than a movie can be, or you kind of have to try to make a good movie. And in this case, it felt to me, I don't know if this was the case, it felt to me like they're trying to be close to the novel and they're trying to convey what the novel has in it. And a lot of times in the novel, there are things that are very poetic, that are symbolic, that are metaphorical, or that are things going on inside somebody's head. And certain sequences you have here where somebody's just doing something wordlessly, and you're like, why are they doing that? Maybe I'm dumb. If you agree, it wouldn't be the first one. So what's the deal here? So and there's a John Barry score, that's pretty cool. Based on the book by Nathaniel West. I'm looking at my notes. Sorry, it's 144 minutes, so it is long, and it did feel long to me. And I stopped it about halfway and had a little discussion while we were watching it, and I'm like, there's another hour of this. So I didn't really enjoy this film. It was originally a Paramount release, and apparently Robert Evans, who was running Paramount at the time and just getting ready to do Chinatown, was not in favor of this film. He was basically saying, you're making a film that basically shows everything we represent to be horrible. What's on this? We have English 1.0, original English mono soundtrack, English stereo 2.0 soundtrack, English 5.1 soundtrack. We have, I'm sorry, again, I secretly have these notes over here. William Castle is in this movie. To me, the coolest thing about this, other than that ending, which is just like horrifying, is that William Castle is in it playing a director. So if you wanted to hear Billy Barty curse, and if you wanted to see William Castle get a decent amount of screen time in color and curse up a storm, you can see that too. Excuse me. Extras, we have an oral history commentary. Lee Gambon talks with several people of the cast and crew. None of the big names in the cast that you'd recognize, but people, if they say who they played in the movie, be like, oh yeah, that's who they played in the movie. Talking about how this film came to be. And there's a lot of stories from those people and how they became that position in Hollywood that they got, but also how they became involved with the film, and really a lot of stories about how this movie got made and why, and that was, to me, very interesting. Welcome to West Hollywood, an appreciation by critic Glenn Kenny, and that's him talking about the film for 24 minutes. Days of the Golden Age, costume and film historian Alyssa Rose discusses the film's costumes with comments by costume designer Anne Rose, which was very interesting, very cool that they got the person who did the costumes to talk about how those came to be and what they were thinking with the costumes and the psychology behind costume design, which I find interesting. That was 18 minutes. Then we have Jeepers Creepers, Where'd You Get Those Peepers? Lee Gambon's visual essay on the film and its themes. That's 24 minutes. You get 2 radio spots that are 60 seconds each that do kind of lead on that this is going to be a pretty grim movie for whoever goes to see it. And then you get 3 image galleries. We get promotional stills, 41 of those images, photos by Michael Childers, 20 images, and photos by Ron Vidor, 8 images. So it's an interesting film. It's like, I'm here telling you I didn't like it, but in retrospect, there are interesting things about it. It does show, there's a scene in a grand old movie theater with a cool, gigantic staircase that goes up to a lobby. This was shot, I guess it was shot in 73, didn't come out until 75, because I'm watching this and I'm like, how is Jackie Earle Haley look so much younger than he does in Bad News Bears, which was a film from the next year? And the answer was it was shot like 2 years before it came out. It had a huge post-production period. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's an interesting watch. I just personally didn't like it. So available on Blu-ray from Arrow Video is the epic tale of horrific Hollywood. And it really does become a horror movie in those last 10 minutes. Arguably, it's a horror movie throughout. Day of the Locust.